Welcome back, students. We continue with this particular chapter through the eyes of the travelers. And the topic which we'll be continuing is Ibn Battuta and the excitement of the unfamiliarity. Unfamiliar. Now, when we are talking about unfamiliar, we are basically dealing with subjects which we do not know. So, when we do not know a particular thing and we are very much interested, then what actually happens is that we get excited about those things. The same thing happened with Ibn Battuta. When he traveled right here to India and visited the bazaar of Delhi, he was very much excited to see a lot of food stuff and new things right here. So when he saw these new things, he was very much excited to know what all these things are all about. So here we'll talk about his traveling account, where we'll talk about the bazaar, he will talk about the food stuff, the various textiles, the various clothes, and also we'll talking about how he's trying to compare things in and around with his familiar subjects, whatever contemporary things she's knowing. Okay, we start with the chapter now. Ibn Battuta and the excitement of the unfamiliar. By the time Ibn Battuta arrived in Delhi in the 14th century, now here Ibn Battuta is arriving in Delhi in the 14th century, remember that. The subcontinent was a part of global network of communication that stretched from China in the east to northwest Africa and Europe in the west. So Ibn Battuta was able to come to India and to Delhi because everything was connected. It was sort of a new, life, or a new life to the trade which was given, or we can say the rise of the trend of globalization which was taking place right there. And that is why Ibn Battuta was able to travel from Morocco and came right here in India. As we have seen, Ibn Battuta himself traveled extensively through these lands, visiting sacred shrines, spending time with learned men and rulers, often officiating as Qazi, and enjoying the cosmopolitan culture of urban centers where people who spoke Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and other languages shared ideas, informations, and anecdotes. So here it is, here what we get information about Ibn Battuta is that he's traveling all over India, and when he was traveling all over India, he's coming across people who are speaking different languages. What type of languages is the people are speaking in India? The people are speaking Arabic, they're speaking Persian, they're speaking Turkish, and other languages also. So these are some of the major languages which were spoken in India at that particular time, that is in and around 14th century. Then we have, it says, these included stories. So what actually he has written about in his account, he has written stories about men noted for their piety, kings who could be both cruel and generous, and about the lives of ordinary men and women. Anything that was unfamiliar was particularly highlighted in order to ensure that the listener or the reader was suitably impressed by accounts of distant yet accessible worlds. So here, as I said, what we are trying to, what information is that we are getting from the accounts of Ibn Battuta. He says he's coming across, for people who are piety, people, kings, is coming across ordinary men and women. And in the accounts of Ibn Battuta, he's highlighting those things which are unfamiliar to him. So there are many things which he came across which is very unfamiliar to him. Okay, here I have given you a question which is, when did Ibn Battuta arrive in Delhi? So this is the first question. He arrived in 14th century. Let's go into the next paragraph now. 5.1, the coconut and the pan. Some of the best examples of Ibn Battuta's strategies of representation are evident in the ways in which he described the coconut and the pan, two kinds of plant produce that were completely unfamiliar to his audience. So his audience are people from abroad, and for him these two particular food items were unfamiliar. So which are the two items? It says the two items are the coconut and the pan. So I have given you a question right here. Name the two plant product produce that completely surprised Battuta. Name the two plant produce that completely surprised Battuta. This is an important question. Let's move to the other part. Ibn Battuta and the Indian cities. Now he is describing the Indian cities right here. As I move with the paragraph, let's do the explanation also. Ibn Battuta found cities in the subcontinent full of exciting opportunities for those who had the necessary drive, resource, and skills. So, what he says? He says that the Indian cities were full of excitement, and if the person is full of energy, the skills which are needed, he will be able to rise higher. He will be able to gain a lot of popularity in India. Why? Because what he needed was what he said. He needed the drive, the necessary drive, resources, and the skills. Then he says they were densely populated. So the Indian cities were densely populated and prosperous, except for the occasional disruptions caused by wars and invasions. So it was densely populated, except in some situations. So he has also given us an account of the situation when the cities were not densely populated. There was situation when there was war or invasion. It appears from Ibn Battuta's account that most cities had crowded streets. So a lot of people used to live in that particular city, and bright and colorful market. This clearly shows that particular market was full of color, full of different types of cloth, different type variety of fruits and vegetables, which was available in the market. So that is why he's talking about full of colors. He says that was stacked with a wide variety of goods. Ibn Battuta described Delhi as a vast city with a great population, the largest in India. So at that time, he says was the largest in India. Daulatabad in Maharashtra was no less and easily rivaled Delhi in size. So Daulatabad was another city which actually was compared to Delhi at that particular period of time. So I have given you a question right here. The question is, according to Battuta, name the city that rivaled Delhi in size. According to Battuta, name the city that rivaled Delhi in size. Now, before that, we have another question. The cultivation of which tree is compared to the cultivation of betel by Battuta? The cultivation of which tree is compared to the cultivation of betel by Battuta? So, cultivation of betel tree was compared to the cultivation of grapes. The answer is right here. So, you need to know all these things. So, the question there is another question which I have explained right here. It says, describe the Indian cities through the eyes of Ibn Battuta. It's a long answer. You might get 4 marks or maybe 5 marks. Describe the Indian cities through the eyes of Ibn Battuta. Moving on to the next topic. Ibn Battuta talks about bazaar in this particular paragraph. The bazaars were not only places of economic transactions but also the hub of social and cultural activities. So economic transaction is going on, social activities is going on, and cultural activities are also going on. Most bazaars had a mosque and a temple, and in some of them at least, spaces were marked for public performances by dancers, musicians, and singers. So the marketplace was a place where you find that the dancers used to perform, the musicians used to perform. So the marketplace was a place of a hub where you find that the people used to move around. And just think of it, how excited would have been that particular place, filled of crowd, people selling items, and some of them they are dancing, some of them are playing music, and it's all such a beautiful place. So the market was considered to be a place full of excitement. So here I have given you a question related to bazaar. What information do we get about the bazaar through the records of Ibn Battuta? Okay, now we go to the next paragraph. It says, while Ibn Battuta was not particularly concerned with explaining the prosperity of towns, historians have used his account to suggest that towns derived a significant portion of their wealth through the appropriation of surplus from village. So here, even though Ibn Battuta has not given a large detail or you can say deeper detail of the bazaar or the cities and the towns, still the historians are able to check out those information stating that these cities, they were extremely rich. Why? Because a lot of what it says, a portion of their wealth through the appropriation of surplus from the village, means the village were supplying a surplus of each and everything in the city, which made the city prosperous and wealthy. Ibn Battuta found Indian agriculture very productive because of the fertility of the soil, which allowed farmers to cultivate 2 crops a year. So here it is talking about the fertility of the soil. 2 crops a year. That clearly shows that Ibn Battuta was, a very strong observer of each and everything. He also noted that subcontinent was well integrated with inter-Asian networks of trade and commerce, with Indian manufacturers being in great demand in both West Asia and South Asia. So he's talking about the traders who are in great demand in West Asia and South Asia. He's talking about when the Indian traders are in great demand, this clearly shows that the people right here, the farmers were playing a very important role. They were producing good number of goods, which was basically traded. So that clearly shows that the hard work of the farmers also, and also the way the traders used to work hard and they used to trade at an international level. They were used to trade to different countries, different parts of the world. It says, fetching huge profits for artisans and merchants. So the traders were fetching huge profits. How? Why? Because the product which was made in India, which was produced in India, was basically of high demand at the international level, and the traders, they were very, they were very intelligent. They used to sell those products at a very high rate, and so they were used to make a huge amount of profit, and the profit was basically being passed at the lower level, to each and every person who was working hard for it. Now let's see about what are the products which is talking about. Indian textiles, particularly cotton cloth, fine muslins, silk, brocade and satin were in great demand. Ibn Battuta informs us that certain varieties of fine muslin were so expensive that they could be worn only by nobles and the very rich. So clearly you can see the produce of India, so fine, so delicate, that only the rich can bear the cost of these produce. So here I have given you a question. Which Indian textiles were in demand in the market of Delhi? Which Indian textiles were in demand in the market of Delhi? Moving forward, third point, third paragraph, 5.3, a unique system of communication. The state evidently took special measures to encourage merchants. So here the state is also playing a very important role, where it's trying to push, where it's trying to encourage the merchants to move forward, to push forward, to go to other parts of the world for trading, so that more and more profit can be made and more tax can be collected from the merchants. Almost all trade routes were well supplied with inns and guest houses. Ibn Battuta was also amazed by the efficiency of the postal system, which allowed merchants to not only send information and remit credit across long distances, but also to dispatch goods required at short notice. The postal system was so efficient that while it took 50 days to reach Delhi from Sindh, the news report of spies would reach the Sultan through postal system in just 5 days. So here in this particular paragraph we are talking about the efforts which are made by the state. Now the state is also putting a lot of effort by pushing the merchants for more and more trade, and for that it is making a lot of arrangements. What are the arrangements it is making? What arrangements? Let's talk about. routes were well supplied with inns and guest houses. Why? So that the merchants can take rest and they can travel. So these arrangements were, you can say, much better for the traders, as they used to travel from one place to another. So became the state never wanted that they should ever have complaints from the merchants. Then it says, Ibn Battuta is talking about the postal system, that it was so efficient that it was able, that through the postal system the king or the ruler used to get information from Delhi, from Sindh to Delhi. Information is coming from Sindh and is reaching Delhi in just 5 days, while the traveling used to take around 50 days. The traveling used to take about 50 days, but the information from Sindh to Delhi took just 5 days. This clearly shows that the communication was efficient and the state took it very seriously, because today also we find that the communication is a very important part for business, for administration, each and everything. If the communication is not well, if the people are not communicated well, what happens? It is the state which suffers, and it is sometimes and majorly it is the people who are suffering a lot from it. Okay, so here now we'll move to the next part. We'll go back to the previous page and we'll talk about source 6. Source 6. Here you find that Ibn Battuta is really surprised to see the nuts right here, the one which has been used in the pan. The following is how Ibn Battuta, which has been used in the coconut he is talking about right here. So sorry, whenever it comes about nuts, I'm talking about the pan right here. The following is how Ibn Battuta described the coconut. These trees are among the most peculiar trees in kind, most astonishing in habit. They look exactly like date palms, without any difference between them except that the one produces nuts as its fruits and the other produces dates. So here you can clearly see that Ibn Battuta has compared the tree, the date palm tree, with the tree, the coconut tree. So here you can see the comparison. It might come as a question right here. The nut of a coconut tree resembles a man's head, for in it are what looks like 2 eyes and a mouth, and inside of it, when it is green, looks like the brain, and attached to it is a fiber which looks like hair. So it's a beautiful description of what Ibn Battuta has seen, and is describing the coconut. So you need to remember these things. This description, the words of description which have been given by Ibn Battuta. You might find a question stating that which fruit is he talking about. So he's talking about the coconut. They make from this cords with which they sew up ships instead of iron nails, and they also make from it cables for vessels. So here Ibn Battuta is also talking about the benefits of the coconut tree. How the coconut tree, apart from the fruit, its other parts are also being used for making cables to hold the ships. And it says they sew up ships. So sewing up the ships is also being taken care of by the help of this coconut tree. So here where we come across an unfamiliar tree, which is which is being known by which actually is come across Ibn Battuta, and he is trying to describe it in a very different way, so that the reader, his audience, may get very much excited about it. Let's move to the other part, the pan. He talks about the pan. What does he talk about the pan? Read Ibn Battuta's description of the pan. The betel is a tree which is cultivated in the same manner as the grapevine. So the betel tree is compared right here. The cultivation of betel tree is compared with the cultivation of grapevine. The betel has no fruit and is grown only for the sake of its leaves. The manner of its use is that before eating it, one takes areca nut. This is like a nutmeg but in broken up until it is reduced to small pellets. And one places these in his mouth and chews them. So it's describing the way people eat pan right here in India at that particular period of time and at present also. Then he takes the leaves of the betel, puts a little chalk on them and masticates them along with the betel. So here, such beautiful lines, such a beautiful description of the betel tree can be seen through the records of Ibn Battuta. These are important. We need to learn. We need to, learn certain lines so that whenever there is a question which is coming right there in the board examination, and if it is asking which fruit is it talking about, which tree it has been talking about, then only you can say, if you have read, then only you will be able to answer these questions. So it's my suggestion to the students that while you go along with these questions which have been written right here, please do read your book again and again, the chapter again and again, so that you may get good results. Okay, thank you.